I have already told you that regarding the consistency of a method and your order of a method, you have already seen that. Sorry, the that theorem, and there was in the last lecture you might remember that CP plus 1 and CP, all those things were coming. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I will use the same notation here again, and the thing which I have explained on that turn you can see here directly. And as I have told that whenever you want to move further, you have to write in any method, you have to write the UTJ plus 1, UTJ plus 1, UTJ minus 1, everything in terms of UTJ, and then your local truncation error can be calculated from there. So the similar thing we are going to see here, and in terms of your CPs, and then next we'll see that what we have seen as consistency part, and then all those things will see those things in terms of the polynomials rho I and sigma I. So this is what you'll see first, and then we'll move for the stability part of a multi-step method. So u prime equal to fxt, the same problem, ut naught equal to u naught. Here we'll take a multi-step method of this type, that your uj plus 1 equal to a1 uj plus a2 uj minus 1, and so on, and then slope part h into that implicit part, and then remaining slopes are there. In summation form, you may write uj plus 1 equal to I running from 1 to k ai u of j minus I plus 1, and h times that slope part. So that is written here in summation form. So tj plus 1, immediately once the method is there, you understand that tj plus 1 is nothing but uj plus 1 minus all the things which are on the right hand side. So it will become utj plus 1 minus summation I1 to k ai u of t j minus I plus 1, and then minus h times the slope part. Now we'll just see that UTJ plus 1 will be your UTJ. I'm just writing the Taylor expansion up to order h cube, and order h4 I'm not touching here. I mean, beyond that, if you want to write, you can write whatever the term is required. It can be written immediately. So UTJ plus HU prime TJ, and then h square by 2 factorial u double prime tj plus h cube by 3 factorial u triple prime, and so on and so forth. Similarly, I'm writing the general one. What you have in the summation utj minus I plus 1, the Taylor expansion for this utj minus I plus 1. So it is utj minus I plus 1 can be written as u of tj plus 1 minus I into h. So this its Taylor expansion will be utj plus I minus 1 into h u prime tj, and then I minus 1 minus I square by 2 factorial h square, then u double prime, and so on and so forth. The other terms are there. Similarly, u prime tj minus I plus 1, which is your with your slope part, u prime tj minus I plus 1. So this again we write here. So it will be your u prime tj plus 1 minus I h u double prime, because it is the expansion of u prime. So u prime, then u double prime, and then 1 minus I square by 2 factorial h square u triple prime tj. I think up to this everything is clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So next we'll put all the things in Tj plus 1. So I'm not writing things explicitly here. We'll just try to see that, and then we'll see these coefficients. So if your Tj plus 1 is C naught Utj, means coefficient of your Utj, then C1 H U prime Tj, then C2 H square U double prime Tj, and so on. Since the method is of order P, so it will be your Cp S to power P U pth derivative of U at Tj plus capital order S to power P plus 1. The coefficient here, if we see, will be your Cp plus 1. Now you can correlate this coefficient with the, when we have given the relation between sigma and your rho I, there you can, so basically the same notation I am using. Is that clear? Is that clear?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. So let us see what will be the coefficient of your Utj. Means what will be your C naught. You see, you have written Utj plus 1 in terms of Utj. So one term here is Utj without H. So this is Utj, and here also in the inside also you will get Utj plus 1 minus I 1 minus I H into U prime. So this will be the second term will correspond to your H into that, but only constant term is Utj, means summation I running from 1 to k ai will be the coefficient of Utj, and here one will be here 1 minus I equal to 1 to k ai. Is this part clear? The coefficient of Utj, that is your C naught.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then C naught we can write as 1 minus summation I running from 1 to k ai. Is this clear now? And then we'll see the next one, that is your coefficient of hu prime tj. Hu prime tj, that is your C1. So how that C1 will look like in here, that we will see. You see, the second term will be having h into u prime here, and then in slope also, if you see, h into bi u prime tj, so h coefficient will be here also, so that will be h u prime. So this will be with this one, h into u prime tj, means here it will be bi's, but here it will be what? It will be your 1 minus I. Keep that in mind. It will be here 1 minus I into AI type of thing will be there. So you see, in C1, 1 is always there, because UTJ plus 1 is written as UTJ plus HU prime TJ. So 1 will come from here, the 1 into HU prime TJ, and then remaining part will come from here, that is here from summation, this portion, and here it will be multiplied with 1 minus I, because here 1 minus I is there. So you see here, I 1 minus I running from 1 to k, 1 minus I AI. Up to this it is clear? Up to this it is
Yes, sir.
clear, the first bracket?
Yes, sir.
Okay, second bracket, if you see the coefficient of HU prime, then HU, once you expand this, it will be your U prime Tj minus 1 plus Tj minus I plus 1 will be, first term will be U prime Tj. So that will be there. There will be no other term. So it will be your H I running from 0 onward, and then Bi. So here it is written, if you see the C1, it is written C1 is 1 minus summation I running from 1 to k, 1 minus I AI minus summation I running from 0 to k Bi. You can just you can see that later on, that these two coefficients are the first two conditions in your theorem that I have explained on last, or maybe last before that. where C naught is given by this, C1 is given by this, you require that for your consistency condition. You remember that?
Yes, sir. There were two
Okay.
formulas.
Similarly, we can write your CQ means that will be the coefficient of other powers of H, means H square U double prime, and so on up to your S to power P, and then U P a derivative of U prime. So that general one we can write as CQ 1 by Q factorial. Shall I leave this to verify you people? Because if you see U triple prime, where it is, U double prime has your 1 minus I square by 2 factorial, right? Similarly, you have to see the general term, and the general term CQ will be 1 by Q factorial, right? If it is double prime, where it is? Here, if it is double derivative, then 2 factorial is there, and then 1 minus I square is there. So accordingly, if you see here, 1 by Q factorial, and then that is taken out, 1 minus I to power Q is there, right? AI and 1 will always be there, because this will come from YTJ plus 1, UTJ plus 1, right? And similarly, the slope part will be here. And so a general CQ for Q running from 1, 2, 3 onward can be written in this form. Shall I explain the second term also, or it is clear to you people?
It is clear.
Anybody to whom it is not clear? That's the reason I have explained the first two terms very carefully. Anybody? Anybody has any trouble? Or shall I proceed? It seems nobody is responding, means hopefully everything is clear to you people. Now, this part you already know. We are seeing from the beginning itself that if we say that a multi-step method or any method is of order P, if your C naught is 0, C1 is 0, CP up to CP it is 0, but CP plus 1 should not be equal to 0. Is that right? It should not be equal
Yes.
to 0, right? Then this will be of order P method, because the local truncation error will be capital order S to power P plus 1. So divided by H, that will be order P, right? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. For consistency condition, we have already seen that C naught is 0 and C1 is 0, right? The multi-step method is that we have already told in that theorem, that the multi-step method will be is said to be consistent if it has order greater than or equal to 1 at least. So that is your C naught is same as C1, or in other words, C naught is 0 and C1 is 0, right? Now, we are going to see the relations. Rho I corresponding to this, did you try any problem from that rho I and sigma I?
No, sir.
Okay. Since it is a k-step method, then I have already told on that day that the polynomial will be, rho I will be a k degree polynomial, and sigma I will be k degree or k minus 1 degree, depending on whether it is an implicit method or explicit method. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So if it is an explicit method, B naught will be 0. So in general, we'll consider the implicit method. Means B naught not equal to 0. In case B naught is 0, that will go off. That is the only difference. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is the meaning of C naught equal to 0? We have already got this C naught. C naught equal to 0 means this equal to 0 means 1 equal to summation I running from 1 to k AI. Is that right? So what
Yes.
it says? C naught equal to 0 means 1 minus summation ai 1 I running from 1 to k ai equal to 0. But what is this? If you see row 1 will be 1 minus a1 minus a2 and so on minus ak. This is what is this. This is also the same thing. 1 minus a1 minus a2 and so on equal to 0. This says that it is same as row 1 equal to 0. The first condition that you have for the consistency, that C naught equal to 0. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll calculate this rows I also, don't worry. Next we'll see that one. Maybe today, maybe next time. Then next one is your C1 is also 0. C1 is 0 means I'm just writing the whatever we have got for the C1. This quantity equal to 0. So what does this give? Let us see. C1 equal to 0 means 1 minus summation I running from 1 to k, 1 minus I, ai minus summation I running from 0 to k, bi equal to 0. Now, what is sigma of 1? Sigma of 1 will be your b naught plus b1 plus so on up to bk. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So means this summation I running from 0 to k is nothing but sigma of 1. So I have just replaced this as sigma of 1. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now next we will see, can we write the remaining portion as in terms of rows I or not? So let us see that. I'm just writing this in the expanded form first. 1 plus I, this one, so it will be 1 plus a2. Why a2? Wait.
I is equals to 1 will be 0 because I minus 1 term is appearing.
No, a1 is there, na? So, oh, pardon me, what did you say?
Uh, ai into I minus 1. So if we put I is equals to 1, then
Oh, I
a1.
equal to 1, so that goes to 0. Okay, right. So that is the first term, it is okay, it is already taken care. Okay, so it is 1 plus a2 and then 280, 2a3, because then I minus 1 will be that, and then write like that, last value will be k minus 1 ak, right? And this is your b naught plus b1 plus so on up to bn, right? That is your sigma 1. Already I have written. Now we'll just rewrite this. 1 plus a1 is added, right? So a1 I have subtracted here. A2 is there. I have added one more a2, so it will become 2a2. So 1a2 is added. So 1a2 is subtracted, right? 2a3 is there. So I add one more a3. So add one a3 and subtract one a3. So next is your a3 and so on so forth. It is k minus 1 ak. Add one more ak. So it will be k ak and one ak is added here. So one ak is subtracted here. So it is the same thing. Both the expressions are same.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Minus sigma 1 is already there. Now let us see. Rho xi is given by xi to power k minus a1 xi to power k minus 1 minus a2 xi to power k minus 2 and so on minus ak. What will be rho prime? This is a polynomial. Differentiate with respect to xi. So this will be k xi to power k minus 1, then minus k minus 1 a1 xi to power k minus 2 and so on so forth. Last term will go to 0, and before that term will be available here, that is your minus a k minus 1, because last term is constant. So before that term will be only available once you differentiate that. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next, we'll just try to see rho prime 1. So rho prime 1 here it will be k minus 1 a1, k minus 2 a2 and so on minus ak minus 1, right? Don't see this star I will talk later on. And then we are subtracting minus k ak minus 1 minus k ak and then adding the same k ak minus 1 plus k ak. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. After that, the job is over. It is just a simple manipulation, nothing is there. So we'll take this k out. Here it will be 1 minus a1, that is your k into your a1, and then here it is minus, and minus 1, that will be your plus a1. Here my plus 2a2. So this I have written separately, a1 plus 2a2. Next one will be 3a3. So that is written here, a1, 2a2, 3a3, and so on, k minus 1, ak minus 1 plus k ak, which is already added here, right? And then remaining will go here, k times, it is 1 minus a1, a2, so only the k it is 1, then k times first part, k minus minus k a1 minus k a2, and like that. So minus k ak minus 1 minus k ak is taken from here, so that is added here. Remaining is added with the remaining term, so it is a1 plus 2a2 plus 3a3 and so on, k minus 1 ak minus 1, then k ak. Is that clear?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that clear? Okay. Nothing is there, just simple manipulation is there. Now, rho prime 1 is what? Rho prime 1, you have rho prime 1 will be k minus 1 a1 and like that. So it is, it will be your a1. This one is what? Rho 1. Rho 1 will be what? 1 minus a1 minus a2 and minus ak. Rho 1 is 0, means what? Where is that? This term is rho 1 to 0. So this is k into rho 1, but rho 1 is 0, so this goes to 0. Remaining term is only this thing, means rho prime and your rho prime 1 is 1 plus 2a2 plus 3a3 plus kak. So using that, what we will get? We'll get that this where I have written here. So this can be written as this term 2 equation can be written as rho prime 1 minus sigma 1 equal to 0, or rho prime 1 equal to sigma 1. So there are two conditions which you have got using your previous theorem, that C0 is 0, C1 is 0, and that tells in terms of rho and psi that rho 1 is 0 and rho prime is your sigma 1. Is this part clear?
Yes, sir.
What is the meaning of rho 1 equal to 0?
C0 equals to 0.
No. 1 is the root of the polynomial rho psi. 1 is the root of the polynomial rho psi. Is this clear or not? Rho 1 is 0 means what?
Yes, sir.
So 1 is the root of that equation. So at least you one root you know. One root
Yes.
is your psi equal to 1.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because this is these two conditions are required condition, means any method you develop has to be consistent. Once it has to be consistent, means you require that rho 1 equal to 0 and rho prime 1 equal to sigma. So those two conditions, that C0 equal to 0, C1 equal to 0 is equivalent to rho 1 equal to 0 and rho prime 1 equal to sigma 1. Is that right? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now I will take up one instead of taking a very general one, or let us say that with the general one itself, I will start that, and we'll just try to Just wait for a moment. Okay, so these definitions to tell you people, otherwise. Okay, let me tell this also. Anyway, this will be repeated because once again I will do the same thing. Let us take a very general method, and I need not to explain. You understand this is the first part, this is your slope part, and then for the stability part you have to apply this y prime equal to lambda y. So you write that y, so accordingly y prime will be your yn minus j lambda times f of x. Either you say f or you can say y prime of n minus j. That will be lambda times y of n minus j. So this will be replaced by lambda times yn minus j, and then we put actually this portion is not taught to you how to find these are called the this type of method is called the difference equation. So that is not told to you. So if you anybody is interested to see how to find the solution of such difference equation, you can see there is a book by Hildebrand. I can tell the spelling HILFB, F dot B for Bombay dot Hildebrand. H, if you want, you note down HILDEBRAND, Hildebrand. Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Yes. This is again the numerical analysis book. Which chapter that is there, I don't remember exactly. A portion of that I will tell you here. But I'm not going to tell you how to find out those things. I will briefly tell that. So we'll just put yn as xi to power n. These justifications you will see later on why we write this xi to power n. So yn equal to xi to power n, if we put here, so we'll get here it is xi to power n plus 1, and like that we'll get xi n minus j, and here it will be xi n minus j here also because y is there. So if you write in open form, it will be xi n plus 1 equal to a naught xi to power n a plus a1 xi to power n minus 1, like that, and then the up to it will go a p xi to power n minus p, and like that. So we may take both the things on one side and then divide by xi to power n minus p, that is the lowest power. Xi to power n minus p, that is the lowest power, divide the whole thing by xi to power n minus p. So here it will become xi to power p plus 1, and then you'll see a naught xi to power p, and so on. So this will be one, you see the row xi which I have written earlier was that of this type, that since there it was k plus k, so k plus 1, here it is just p plus 1, there is only one difference. So here we can write this as rho xi h lambda times this quantity we can write as sigma xi. It is getting repeated again and again. So this whole difference equation we can write as rho xi minus lambda h. Later on we'll write that lambda h as h bar, so that we need not to write again and again that lambda h. So lambda h sigma xi equal to 0, and this equation is called the characteristic equation. And here you see that if h approaches to 0, if h is what? H you have introduced by partitioning your domain. that A to B, right? So if H approaches to 0, what will happen? This characteristic equation will go to the rows I equal to 0. That is called the reduced characteristic equation, right? So these are some definitions, and then the same thing what I have said, I have proved just now that a multi-step method, this is given in the book, in your book, that Iyengar book, and the earlier one I have told from your Atkinson book. I have already proved that how both the things are same. So rho 1 equal to 0 and rho prime equal to sigma 1. So C naught equal to 0, C1 equal to 0 gives these two conditions in terms of rho and sigma, and so the multi-step method is said to be consistent if rho 1 equal to 0 and rho prime 1 equal to sigma 1. So you can use any one of them. You can use any one of them. Rho 1 equal to 0 immediately gives this quantity. It is the reverse way it is done. Nothing else is there. I have already done one way. So and then rho prime xi, exactly the same thing you have to do. You have to separate it out, add certain terms, subtract and rho prime xi will be your p plus 1. Just now you have seen xi to power p plus 1, and then you separate out p times terms separately and remaining terms separately, and whatever you require to add, these are the things which are added and subtracted. Rewrite it, and then again you get that sigma 1 is this thing. So basically sigma 1 is this thing, rho prime 1 is this thing, that second condition. So it is the reverse ways it is done. There I have done from those two theorems to your this condition given in your book. Here it is done, the conditions given in your book, from there you get the theorem part. So this is also given in your book also. So basically ultimately you get both ways. Is that right? Is that right? Okay, so both the things are basically same. There is no nowhere I have used inequality, so either you use that or you use this one, both are correct. So next certain definitions are there. What is a root condition? Actually all those things will come okay, let me tell that and then we'll see certain things. A multi-step method, or basically a linear multi-step method of the form, this one, the general form, is said to satisfy the root condition if the roots of the equation, I mean all these things I will tell you, it will be justified once I will do the certain calculations here. Roots of the equation rho I equal to 0 lie inside the unit circle. Lie inside the unit circle in the complex plane. What is the meaning of this? Unit circle is what? Unit circle is what? Its radius is 1.
Yes, sir.
So it is your lambda h plane. Lambda h plane is there. Let us say h bar. So a lambda h plane is there, right? If your magnitude of that is strictly less than 1, right? That is the meaning of your, the means magnitude of xi should be strictly less than 1. The roots lie inside the unit circle means what? Magnitude of xi should be strictly less than 1. This is the meaning of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And are simple if they lie on unit circle. Suppose if any one of the root has the magnitude equal to 1, right? Equal to 1. Lying on the unit circle means what? Its magnitude is
1.
Equal to 1, right? Then it should be simple, means it, you see that characteristic equation, it is a polynomial in xi. It's a polynomial in xi. Rho xi minus h lambda into sigma xi. It is what? It is a polynomial in xi. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
It is a polynomial in xi. So its roots are there. Its roots are there, and it is depending on your depending on your that is your multi-step method. If it was a p plus 1 step method, so it is your it is a p plus 1 degree polynomial, p plus 1 degree polynomial in xi. So it will have roots, let us say xi1, xi2, and so on and so forth. So either xi1 is same as xi2, or xi1 maybe means xi1 has multiplicity more than 1, or it may be simple, means its multiplicity is simple, means its multiplicity is
1.
1. That's right. So if any one of the root lies on the unit circle, that should be simple, means it cannot have multiple roots at that point. It cannot have multiple roots at that point. This is the meaning of lie inside the unit circle in the complex field and are simple if they lie on the unit circle. So if this happens, that all the roots of rho I equal to 0 lie inside the unit circle, and if it lies on the unit circle, means magnitude is 1, then it has to be simple. It cannot have multiple roots on the unit circle. It cannot have multiple roots on the unit circle. This is called the root condition. Is that clear?
Yes,
is that
sir.
clear? Okay. This will come in your way also. Don't worry. The linear multi-step method, the above one, is said to be convergent if h approaches to 0, uj goes to u, tj means your exact one, analytical solution. Provided the rounding of error arising from all initial conditions tend to 0. And then one theorem is there. The proof is not in your course. The linear multi-step method of the form star, that is the above one, is convergent if and only if the method is consistent and satisfy the root condition. So if it is consistent and satisfy the root condition, then it is convergent. Now, from where all these things came? In your book, it is directly written that, but from where all these things came? So that justification I will give next one. We will find here. I will just take up, instead of a very general one, I will take up a rather simple one to explain that. Similar things will happen here also. Yn plus 1 I am writing equal to yn minus L, where n minus L is greater than 0, plus h into m equal to 0 to n k, m equal to 0 to k plus 1 gamma m f of n minus m plus 1 means your gamma equals to 0 will give you that implicit part. So if we want the and the exact this is the method. If we see the exact one, so that will be with your local truncation error. So here it is written. Let me take it otherwise. So it is ytn plus 1 corresponding to this, then ytn minus L plus h times gamma m f of t m n minus m plus 1 yt of n minus m plus 1, and then your local truncation error. So this one is your method, and this one satisfies the continuous solution, where tn plus 1 is a local truncation error, right? So we'll subtract these two and just try to see. Before that, we write that epsilon n is your yn minus ytn. So means we'll subtract 1 minus 2, we'll just try to see. So that will be yn plus 1 minus ytn plus 1. So we can write here epsilon n plus 1. Similarly, here it is yn minus L minus ytn minus L. So we write as epsilon n minus L. And similarly, we write the other term. So it will be h lambda times m running from 0 to k plus 1, because you are applying on y prime equal to lambda y, gamma m, and then epsilon n minus m, because it is your y, so it will become epsilon n minus m plus 1. And this t, since we have subtracted 1 minus 2, so the minus of tn plus 1 y. Up to this it is clear? Up to 3 it is clear. I have just subtracted 1 and 2.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right? Shall I move?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. Now, this is a difference equation, but it is a non-homogeneous difference equation. So if we do, I mean, this term is a non-homogeneous term which does not have epsilon n part. So we'll just remove this, just like your differential equation. If you remember that, if a non-homogeneous differential equation is there, then you first find the solution of homogeneous differential equation, write the general solution of that. That is your, for example, second order differential equation is there. So C naught y1 x plus C2 y2 x, that is the general solution of homogeneous equation. Then next you find a particular solution for the non-homogeneous problem, and then add to that means the homogeneous solution, homogeneous general solution plus particular solution will give you the general solution of your non-homogeneous problem. Do you remember this? This must have been taught to you in your Maths 1, Maths 2.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. The same way here also we'll find this homogeneous one, means we remove this Tn minus 1, find the solution. Then for non-homogeneous also we'll find. That is not required for our case, so we are not going to do that. Anyway, it is given here in this slide. If you want, if you are interested, you can see that. So I have written that. So, but we are not interested here. It is not of our use at this moment. So homogeneous one will be which has those terms which has your epsilon n's. So we'll take only that epsilon n plus 1 equal to epsilon n minus L plus h lambda times summation m running from 0 to k plus 1 gamma m epsilon n minus m plus 1, right? Exactly the same way we have done earlier. We put epsilon n as a xi to power n, and then we'll put here on both sides, and then we get that a xi to power n plus 1, a xi to power n minus L, and so on and so forth. Now you may write it in expanded form. So it is a xi n plus 1 equal to xi n minus L plus h lambda gamma naught xi to power n plus 1. I have just opened that, gamma k plus 1 xi to power n minus k. So lowest term is your xi to power n minus k. We divide by this, and once we divide, immediately we'll get xi equal to xi to power k plus 1 equal to xi to power k minus L, and so on and so forth. So we get a polynomial depending on h. This is your with the red that how to find the non-homogeneous solution that is given. So I'm just skipping this part. Now, so we'll see that it is, I will just rewrite it. Xi k plus 1 minus j xi k minus everything I will take on one side equal to 0 I will write. So this is what is done here. Xi to power k plus 1 minus xi to power k minus L minus h lambda, all those slope part is there, and we rewrite this as xi rho xi minus h lambda sigma xi equal to 0. This is what we have got the characteristic equation. K minus L is greater than 0, and so what is this? This is a polynomial of degree. This characteristic equation is a polynomial of degree
K plus 1.
K plus 1. So it will have K plus 1 roots. It will have K plus 1 roots because we are working in the complex plane. We are working in the complex plane, right? Otherwise also it has the K plus 1 roots. The only thing is that you cannot separate out in the real one. For example, x square plus 1 equal to 0, you cannot find in the real space, right? But in complex one, it is available that your plus minus I, right? So let us say that roots are xi naught to xi k, right? And we have started that epsilon n is your xi to power n. With that we have started epsilon n is a into xi to power n. So the root of this equation, characteristic equation, will be epsilon n will be your a naught, some constant, xi naught to power n, and so on. I mean, next one will be a1, another constant, xi1 to power n, and so on, ak xi k to power n. Is that clear?
Yes,
This
sir.
will be valid when all the roots are distinct.
Not simple.
No, they are simple. I mean, simple or not, that we'll talk later on. But they are all distinct means they are simple. Means xi naught is not same as any one of xi case. Right?
Yes.
This solution will be only when your all the xi naught are all the xi i's are distinct. Suppose the two xi i's, xi1 and xi2 are same, then the solution will be what? It will be a1 plus n times a2 xi1 to power n. Is that right? If there are one more, then it will be plus n square a3 xi1 to power n. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Then only they will be linearly independent. Otherwise, they won't be linearly independent. Do you remember the meaning of linear dependence and independence? Yes or no? Forgotten. Anyway, so if they are distinct, then its solution will be epsilon n equal to a naught xi to power xi naught to power n and so on ak xi k to power n. If they are not distinct, let us say that xi1 is same as xi2. In that case, we'll write instead of a1 xi1 to power n, a2 xi to power n, we'll write as a1 plus n times a2 xi1 to power n. Is that right? Is that
Yes,
right? Yes. Okay. Now the question comes. This is your epsilon n. Epsilon n was what? Yn minus. Epsilon n was what? Yn minus ytn. Right?
Yes, sir.
What is the meaning of this? This is the error at nth place. This is the epsilon n is what? Error at
N plus.
nth place, right? Means nth value, right? Now, if this error is in your control, the method will be stable. If this error is in your control, method will be stable.
Yes, sir.
Now, if all the roots are distinct, then what will happen? If magnitude of xi i's are strictly less than 1, then errors are in your control.
Yes, sir.
Means that is the condition that magnitude, if all the roots are distinct, they should lie inside the unit circle. My magnitude of xi less than 1 in the complex plane means what? Hello?
So your voice was breaking a bit.
My voice is breaking. Might be some network trouble. Now it is coming?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if magnitude of xi less than 1 means what?
It is inside the unit circle.
It is inside the unit circle. Now, you see, if the roots are not distinct and magnitude of xi equal to 1, what will happen? It will be 1, xi1 to power n will be 1.
Yes, sir.
And then what will be left? a1 plus n times a2.
Yes, sir.
But n tends to infinity. H goes to 0 or n tends to infinity.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that right or not? Then
Yes,
what
sir.
will happen? This term blows up. This a1 plus n times a2 will blow up. This goes to infinity. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So if the root magnitude is 1 and it is not simple, then it cannot be stable.
Yes, sir.
It will, right? So it has to be simple. If it is simple, till that there is no trouble, because that will become 1 and then it is just a constant term, so it is not going to trouble at all. But if it is it has a multiple root, then at that point, then it will create trouble because the coefficient will blow up, right? So ultimately, what is that you are getting? It will be stable if psi, the roots are inside the unit circle, and if it is on the unit circle, it has to be simple. It has to be simple. That's the reason that condition, that root condition is defined. That's the reason that root condition is defined. Now you got why that is defined? Did you get that why that is defined?
Yes, sir.
Right. So possibly this is not given in your book. This I have taken from another book. I don't remember whether it is there or not. And it is very obvious if the magnitude of xi is greater than 1 means the roots are outside that unit circle, very obvious that the error will blow up immediately, right? So for the stability, it has to be inside the unit circle, and any any unit any that your root which is on this circle has to have simple root, right? Region for stability is obvious that wherever it is stable, that region is called the region for the stability, and since it is magnitude is taken, so it is called the absolute stability. So that's the region that word absolute stability has come. So this whole analysis is clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then your definition, these are the given in your book. It is directly taken from that book, that any multi-step method is said to be stable if your magnitude of xi j is strictly less than 1, for j not equal to 1, and unstable. Yes, if your magnitude of xi i's are greater than 1, then for some j, then the and or if there is a multiple root rho xi equal to 0 of my modulus unity, then it cannot be stable, it is unstable. And then conditionally stable if xi j are simple and if more than one of these roots have modulus of unity. So means modulus of unity is so they are simple, and if more than one of these roots have modulus of unity, is that right? Then it
Yes,
is
sir.
called the conditionally stable, right? And these are certain definitions which I have already told to you, that from one it is clear that h approaches to 0, the characteristic polynomial equation will reduce to rho xi equal to 0. This is called the reduced characteristic polynomial or characteristic equation, depending on if you write rho xi, then it is polynomial. If you write rho xi equal to 0, it is characteristic, reduced characteristic equation. Now, in general, if you see this characteristic equation, rho xi minus lambda h sigma xi equal to 0. This depends on xi as well as h also, because h is introduced from our side. So let us say the root of this rho xi minus lambda h sigma xi are xi1 h, xi2 h, xi k h, right? These are the roots of your characteristic equation. Then we'll just try to write this roots of characteristic equation in terms of the reduced characteristic roots of reduced characteristic equation. So xi I h, you see, as h approaches to 0, that characteristic equation goes to rho xi equal to 0, because h goes to 0, this goes off, means the root of this as h approaches to 0 goes to the root of rho xi equal to 0. So let us say the root of rho xi equal to 0 are xi1, xi2, xin, and root of the main characteristic equation is xi1h, xi2h, and xikh. Then how we can write xi in terms of xi's? Let us see. In terms of that, I am writing xi equals xi. I am writing inside 1 plus h bar. H bar is your lambda h. Ki, I am just introducing one, plus capital order h square, h bar square term, right? Now, if h approaches to 0, means your h bar will also go to 0 because lambda is a constant. So in that case, your this term will go off, this will go off because the order h square term is there. So it only your xi I into 1 is left. So as h approaches to 0, the xi I h becomes the root of rho xi equal to 0 or your reduced characteristic equation. Is this part clear? The way I have written it here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, this Ki is called the growth function. This Ki is called the growth parameter, right? So, if we know the Ki, then we can then we can understand the relation between your xi I h and xi I, right? So, how is this Ki can be calculated? Now, this is your characteristic equation. Since we have assumed that, let me take a glass of water, then I will start again. Just 1 minute.
So your mic is off.
Okay. Now you can hear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, xi I h is the root. So, rho of xi I h minus lambda h, rho of xi I h equal to 0. Or lambda h will write h bar. Now, we'll just write the xi I value, xi I h value. So, rho is a rho of, this is a function, xi I inside the bracket 1 plus h bar, that is your lambda h, ki plus capital order h square, and then h bar sigma of your xi I have just put the value of xi I h, nothing else. 1 plus h bar ki plus capital order h bar square, that capital order h bar square, magnitude h bar square equal to 0. Now we use the Taylor expansion and expand it. So this will be xi I plus h ki xi I. So we'll write that rho of xi I plus the increment h bar ki xi I, and then rho prime of xi I minus, similarly order h square term I will leave, and it will be combinedly written as order capital order h square for both, and then minus h. Here h bar is there. If we multiply the first term itself, that goes to order h square. So we need not to go beyond that. So h bar sigma of xi I, next term will be capital order h square, so that will be absorbed in this. This capital order h square with h bar, it will be capital order h cube, so it is again absorbed in capital order h square, being the lower order term. So finally we have got rho xi plus h bar ki xi I rho prime xi I minus h bar sigma xi I plus capital order h bar square equal to 0. Is this clear? This equation is clear? I have just used the Taylor expansion, keeping in mind that wherever the order h square term is there, that will ignore it and it will go in capital order h square term. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now xi I is a root of rho xi equal to 0. So this goes off. The first term goes off. Right? So it will be your h bar ki xi I rho prime xi I minus h bar sigma xi I. If we ignore this capital order h square term, so this equal to 0. Right? So we have got one equation in your ki's. H bar is known, rho is known, sigma is known, everything is known, right? So we can write ki as sigma xi I divided by xi I into rho prime xi I from here, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now here we'll if you remember for consistency condition, rho of 1 is 0 or 1 is the root of rho xi equal to 0. This I have explained earlier. We'll use that fact. So xi1h is the solution of that characteristic equation, root of characteristic equation, and the roots are xi I h to power n. So that will be written as xi I to power n 1 plus h bar ki plus capital order h bar square whole to power n. Right? Now you see this portion, if you see, this is your xi I to power n. This portion, if you see, capital order h square, we may approximate this portion as exponential of h bar ki, 1 plus x square and so on and so forth. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Then its power n will be your exponential to power n h bar ki. And this is true for all i's, that is your xi I h to power n can be written approximately as xi I to power n exponential n h bar ki, I running from 1 to n. Right? What will happen for rho 1? Rho 1 for consistency condition, rho 1 equal to 0 and
Rho dash
rho
1.
prime 1 equal to sigma 1. Rho prime 1 equal to sigma 1. Right? These two conditions are there for consistency, and this has to be there. For any multi-step method, this has to be there.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Now, so what will be K1 then? For corresponding to xi1, and let us take, we fix that xi1 is 1. We fix that xi1 is 1 because we know that 1 is the root of rho xi equal to 0 because rho 1 is 0. Right?
Yes.
So this K1 becomes what? K1 is rho 1 divided by 1 into rho prime 1. So this is your rho 1 divided by sigma 1 divided by rho prime 1. But sigma 1 is nothing but rho prime 1 because of this consistency condition. So K1 is always 1. K1 is always 1.
Yes, sir.
So means what? Xi1h, keep this in mind. We fix Xi1 as 1. And this is the standard one in your book. We fix Xi1 is 1. There is a reason behind that. Xi1 h to power n will be your xi1 to power n e to power nh plus capital order h square term. Immediately we will get that. Immediately we will get this.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we'll come back to the problem from where we have started. Y prime equal to lambda y. We have started with y prime equal to lambda y with your yx naught equal to eta naught. This was the problem. This was the problem.
Yes, sir.
What is the solution of this? Y prime equal to lambda y. What is the exact solution of this? Is your y equal to e to power lambda x?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At xn, it will be e to power lambda xn. Right?
Yeah.
Xn is what? Xn is your x naught plus n times h.
Yes, sir.
So this we can write as e to power lambda x naught into e to power n times lambda h. I have just separated out x naught plus nh.
Yes, sir.
E to power lambda x naught is a constant that depends on x naught, that is your eta naught. Right? So yn is basically eta naught into e to power lambda h bar. Sorry, nh bar. This is
Yes.
your exact solution. Right? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So means what? Corresponding to xi equal to 1, you are getting that e to power nh. This xi1 power n. This is a constant term, and then e to power nh bar. This you are already
Yes.
getting. This you are already getting. But there are other roots also. There are, instead of only one root, this we are the solution we are getting from just one root, xi1 equal to 1. But other roots are there of that characteristic equation. Is that or not?
Yes, sir.
Now, why this is happening? Why these extra terms are coming? Can anybody tell me? Why these extra terms are coming?
Capital order term is coming because they are extra roots.
Pardon me?
There are extra roots also other than I1.
Right. So why it is coming? The point is why it is coming. Why? Because we have just one equation, one first order differential equation, and that was, once we changed to a multi-step method, we have changed this to n number of roots are there of that equation, right? So we have artificially introduced remaining those roots by introducing a multi-step method, right? So this root xi1 equal to 1, the root corresponding to xi1 equal to 1 is called the, that is your xi1h, is called the principal root, and remaining other roots are called extraneous root. Remaining other roots are called extraneous root. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, the point is that the method, when the method will be stable, if those extraneous roots which we have introduced because of your multi-step method, k-step multi-step method, if that is in your control, if that is in your control, the method will be stable. Meaning by, if the extraneous roots goes to 0, then your method will be stable. Then your method will be, the error in that, then your method will be stable, right? So those extraneous root which were introduced artificially should go to 0. Only then you will have your method will be stable. Is that right? I have written here. This is called the principal root, and this is called the extraneous root. So the behavior of epsilon n will depend on extraneous root's behavior. If they go to 0, then the method will be stable. Otherwise, it will not be stable. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Is that clear? So, shall I take up one example?
Yes, sir.
Still time is there, so I think I can take up one example, very simple example, which you have a midpoint method, right? Yn plus 1 equal to yn minus 1, and then instead of y prime f that is yn plus 1 equal to yn minus 1 plus 2 hfn, instead of f, since we are discussing this stability, so f is your lambda y, so accordingly it will be 2h lambda yn. So for y prime equal to lambda y, the method will be yn plus 1 equal to yn minus 1 plus 2h lambda yn. Is that right? Is that
Yes,
right?
sir.
Yes. So we put yn as I to power n, as we have done earlier in the theory part, right? So xi n plus 1 here, then your xi n minus 1, then xi n. The least power is your xi to power n minus 1, divide by xi to power n minus 1. Here it will be xi square. You get a quadratic polynomial in xi immediately, right? This is your characteristic equation. 2 is your characteristic equation corresponding to your midpoint method, right?
Yes, sir.
Roots are your plus minus lambda h plus minus square root of lambda square h square plus 1. So xi equal to lambda h plus minus square root 1 plus lambda square h square, right? So let us write in terms of exponential. How we can write that we'll see here. Very simple. We'll just use binomial expansion, not much is needed. So both the roots can be written together. Let me first see this with plus. So lambda h, if we write this as gw, so this is your w plus square root of 1 plus w square, right? If we write that lambda h as w. So this is what I have written. And then minus root can be written as, you see, lambda h minus this thing. You can write, take minus out, it will be minus lambda h plus inside that. So it is basically minus of g of minus of lambda h, or minus g of minus w. Both are basically together you can do. Is that right? Instead
Yes,
of
sir.
w, write down minus w and then multiply outside also minus, you will get the expansion for xi2 also immediately by writing the expansion for first one, right? So how this gw can be written in terms of exponential? W plus 1 plus w squared to power half. This is the square root of that. So write down the expansion, binomial expansion. 1 plus 1 by 2 w square minus 1 by 8 w to power 4 and so on and so forth. I think it is plus, right? It should be plus because is there any minus? No, it should be plus, right? So you see, you are getting w1 plus w square by 2, but w cube is not coming because it is 1 plus w whole to power 1 by 2. So it is w square. So its square is there, w to power 4. This is what is coming. It should be plus, you check it, right? Because plus, both are plus, so it cannot be minus. So we add w cube by 6 and subtract w cube by 6. We add w to power 4 by 24, subtract w to power 24, and remaining term is written here. You just check it. It cannot be minus. So you just please verify that.
To the power
Pardon me?
4. Why? There's already
So
w to the power 4. Why we are adding and subtracting again?
no. We are just writing exponential term, and then further you can simplify this and this. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There should
So
not be minus in there.
it should be plus basically. It is
Yes.
plus basically, right? And then you can simplify it later on directly. So we are writing the exponential part first. Whatever is available immediately, leave that, and then remaining you add that and subtract that. If you add here, you subtract here. And the remaining part you just simplify. What is that coming? But first part is your exponential of w. Is that right? So we can write exponential of w, and here you see it is coming beyond w cube, w to the power 4, w to the power 5, and so on and so forth. So at least w cube you can take out, w cube and bw. Bw is also a bounded function. It is a function of 1 plus some constant plus w square, and like that it will come, plus or minus whatever is that. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we can write this gw as e to power w plus w cube bw. Similarly, we can write that second root, and so combinedly, let us see first one. So xi1 to power n will be your g of lambda h to power n, or e to power, if we take this e to power w here out, it will be 1 plus w cube into e to power minus w v into w. So this is what I have written. E to power minus w is minus lambda h. Lambda cube means lambda h to power cube, lambda h cube. B w is b lambda h. It's a continuous function, right? So xi1 to power n will be e to power lambda n h inside the bracket 1 plus lambda h cube into these quantities to power n. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So again, I've just taken that h bar is lambda h. That the same notation is used in your book also. You can use that. So we may write xi1 to power n as e to power lambda nh or nh bar inside the bracket 1 plus capital order h square. Basically, it is a capital order h cube, because e to power minus lambda h will be what? 1 plus something. So again, that lambda h cube term will be there. So we may write at least order, capital order. Actually, it is h bar cube, but we don't require beyond that. So we just write capital order. You may write capital order h cube also. There is no trouble at all. Right?
Okay,
Is that
sir.
clear?
Yes, sir.
Similar, immediately we can write your xi2, because we know that xi2 is nothing but minus g of minus of h bar. So we write minus e of minus h bar plus minus h bar cube b of minus h bar, or we write, simplify that, minus e to power minus h bar you take out. So this will be minus e to power minus h bar 1 plus capital order h bar cube, right? So basically we are not interested beyond order h square, so we may not write that. So basically xi2 to power n is, because of this, minus 1 to power n e to power minus nh bar inside the bracket 1 plus capital order h square, h bar square. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So the two solutions combinedly, it has two solutions. Quadratic equation you have got this, that your characteristic equation. So it is your yn general equation, general solution can be written as yn equal to c1 e to power nh bar inside the bracket capital order 1 plus capital order h square. The second solution is your minus 1 to power n e to power minus nh bar inside the bracket 1 plus capital order h bar square. But the first solution is your, again you see, e to power nh bar, the way you have seen earlier, because this is corresponding to your xi1 equal to 1. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So this is already basically you are seeing it is a principal root. So lambda greater than 0, xi1h is your principal root and extraneous root will be the second one. So if the second one behaves nicely, then it is the solution is basically your stable, otherwise not. So xi2h is your minus e to power minus h bar, actually nh bar, not h bar. The power n is, oh okay, it is written in terms of power n. So xi2h is your e to power minus h bar into this quantity. Now you see the principal root xi1h to power n behaves exactly like exact solution that you have already seen, because y prime equal to lambda y solution is e to power lambda x. So the first one will behave this principal, that's the reason it is written as principal root. And the extraneous root, what will happen for lambda greater than 0, for lambda h bar will be greater than 0, right? So this minus n h bar, so h bar is greater than 0, and then your minus n h bar, this goes to 0 as n increases, very obvious because of minus sign. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Right? Means it is in your control. It is in your control because it goes to 0 as n tends to infinity. Right?
Yes, sir.
But the reverse case, if you see lambda less than 0, then there is a trouble because it blows up. Right? The second extraneous solution blows up because of e to power minus nh bar. if lambda is less than 0. So for this case, it is unstable when h bar is less than 0. Right? Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So other things are also there. So that we'll see on the next one. Okay, let me see. Not much is there. One or two. No. It is for imaginary also. It is there. So remaining thing we'll see on the next one. For today, it is more than enough. Go through this. Go through this stability part. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the syllabus and other things I will, if it is not sent by the coordinator, I will send to you people. So then next we'll meet on, I think from next week we'll meet on Thursday rather than Wednesday. So every Thursday we'll have the class, right?
Okay, sir.
So it is 12 to 1, I think. On Thursday it is 12 to 1, right? So instead of Wednesday, we'll meet on Thursday. Okay? If anything is not clear, you people can ask me on the next one on Thursday. First you ask me, and or even if today also, if anybody has any query, you can ask me. Anybody has any query? Anybody?
Sir,
Hello? Abhilash Sinha.
yes, sir.
So everything is clear?
Yes, sir, it is fine.
Okay. Anybody has any trouble? Rohit Kumar? Rohit Kumar? Are you there or not? Rohit Kumar is not there. Rishi?
Yes, sir. Sir, did you call me? Like,
I called you. Is that everything is clear to you?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll just go through the lecture once again, and if I find
Yeah,
any
that
trouble,
video
I'll
is
ask in the
also there. You can see the video also. You go through the lecture. Anything is not clear, anybody can ask me the question. I'm surprised this time you people are not asking the questions. Okay. So shall I close this? Close this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.